Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to Oncology Classroom evening session. This month, we have been discussing a couple of interesting topics from breast cancer. And today we are going to have a lecture on brachytherapy in carcinoma breast, concept, techniques, and evidence. This lecture will be delivered by Professor D.N. Sharma, who is currently heading the Department of Radiation Oncology at National Cancer Institute and Dr. B.R.A. IRCH, AIIMS, Delhi. Dr. Sharma is a world-renowned radiation oncologist and very well known for his enthusiasm and seminal work on different aspects of brachytherapy. It's a privilege of all of us to get this opportunity to listen to him. Thank you, sir, for accepting this invitation and taking your time from your busy schedule for this lecture. So without wasting any further time, may I now request you to please take over the session and start your presentation. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Dodal. Thank you very much and for the kind words. You know my passion so well because we work together. So it's as simple as that. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to interact with the viewers and the various audience. It's always a pleasure to talk about brachytherapy. It's so close to my heart. So I enjoyed interacting with the viewers, and I hope that after this talk they will start seriously think of practicing the breast brachytherapy. So today we are going to discuss the role of brachytherapy in the carcinoma of breast, the concepts, techniques, and the evidence. And as we all know, the breast cancer is incidence is increasing every day, and more patients are coming in the early stages where the more breasts are being conserved. And whenever we conserve the breast, the brachytherapy has a role. When we conserve the breast, then adjuvant RT has to be given. It is mandatory, as we all know, and it can be delivered in two forms: either the whole breast plus the boost, or the partial breast as per the suitability. Whether it's a boost brachy or it is the partial breast irradiation, the brachy has a potential role, and therefore I always say that every patient where the breast has been conserved is a potential candidate for brachytherapy, by which I mean that whenever we preserve the breast, we should always evaluate the brachytherapy role, and if patient is not suitable, then we should switch over to some other techniques. But otherwise, upfront, we should always try and evaluate the role of brachytherapy for all these patients where the breasts have been preserved. The history goes back to about 100 years back when the famous surgeon from the UK started the breast brachytherapy. He's Geoffrey Keynes. He was a British surgeon. He's the one who challenged. He's one of the surgeons who challenged the dogma of the William Halsted, and he believed that there is no need for doing the total mastectomy. And in fact, he proposed the theory that we can cure the breast cancer by radiation itself, and this is how he treated the breast cancer. He was in 1920s, and he published his first report in 1929, just before the World War. And what he did is that he implanted the entire breast, as you can see in this picture. This is his publication, British Medical Journal, 1937. I could collect this publication from the National Medical Library. And as you can see in this picture, the entire breast has been implanted with the radium needles, and not only the breast, even the axilla, the suprachoroidal fossa, and even the internal mammary chain. These all have been implanted with the radium needles, and therefore he believed that he could cure the breast cancer by implanting the radium needles into the entire breast, SCF, and axilla, and the internal mammary chain. It is very heartening to know that even at that point of time, about a century back, a surgeon could have so much trust in the brachytherapy treatment. And unfortunately, nowadays, some of our colleagues in our fraternity do not have that much faith in the brachytherapy. But I think so. This is a trustworthy treatment, and we must exploit the benefit of the brachytherapy in the breast. this must be questioned in everybody's mind, that in today's era, when we have IMRT, VMAT, Proton, SBRT, why should we practice brachytherapy, which is so invasive and so traumatic? So there has to be some rationale for practicing brachytherapy. And for this, I just have a small example to show the audience that suppose we have to treat a patient who has got a lesion in the breast after this surgery, and we have to give radiation to this lesion. And we have multiple techniques. One is the technique which is being practiced in many centers even now, is that whether it's for boost or for partial breast, is the photon technique, by which we can give 2 parallel opposed techniques and multiple techniques, and in which we see that the tumor is well covered, but the adjoining breast tissue gets a significant dose here. So this can be a problem. The other technique is electron, where the dosimetry is slightly better than the photons, but still we have dose to the at the skin at the entry site, and patient might be having skin ulceration or some cosmetic compromise. So again, the coverage is good, but then we have the significant dose at the skin. When we treat the same lesion by interstitial brachytherapy, as you can see here, the dose is very conformal. The dose to the skin and adjoining breast is negligible, you can say, and the dose to the underlying heart and the lung is also quite minimal. So therefore, interstitial brachytherapy amongst all the techniques of radiation is very conformal. The dose to the adjoining area is very, very minimal. Just to show you that the dose fall-off is very sharp in brachytherapy, as you can see here, the red line is 100% line, the prescription line, and beyond that, even within millimeters, the dose has fallen from 100% to 50%. So therefore, it is very conformal. The dose fall-off is very, very sharp, and therefore, because of this nature, the dose to the underlying heart and lung is very minimal, which is very important for these patients, and even to the skin is also very, very less. So it is a very conformal sort of treatment. Therefore, the rationale for using brachytherapy in the breast is that the breast is a mobile organ. Anatomically, the breast moves with the breathing, so motion is a problem. Then we have the underlying heart and the lung, and if we do not take care of them dosimetrically well, then in the long term there might be risk of the heart disease and the lung fibrosis. And therefore, we must use a technique which can spare these organs and at the same time can cover the lesion very, very well. And brachytherapy, for that matter, is highly conformal and suits these lesions very well. It provides very good local control and the good cosmesis as well. It is such a treatment that is easily available in most centers, unlike the IMRT and VMAT. And it is very cost effective because you need a simple machine which is not very costly. It's just like 3 crores, 4 crores, or unlike the Linac, which is like 15, 20 crores, you know. So it is very easily available treatment, very cost effective treatment, and maybe Indian conditions need much more brachy, than the West, because we have economic problems and we can't, every center cannot afford the Linac, but every center can afford brachytherapy. So therefore, brachy can serve the purpose from multiple angles, and therefore it is a rationalized treatment. Then starting from the boost, as I said, the brachy can be used either for a boost or it can be used as a partial breast treatment. Now for the boost, this concept is very simple. Around the tumor, there's a cluster of the cells which is very densely populated in and around the tumor, usually around 1 to 2 centimeters after the surgery. So that requires a higher dose as compared to the rest of the breast. So that's the simple concept, that the entire breast needs a dose of like 45 to 50 gray, and the lumpectomy or the tumor bearing zone needs another 15-16 gray extra to take care of that local control. So this is how the boost is conceptualized. And I will not go into the details of the literature, but there are a couple of landmark trials which have established the role of the boost treatment in the breast cancer. This is famous EORTC trial 2001. In this, after the lumpectomy and axial lymph node dissection, there were 2 arms after the 50 gray. One arm was given the boost, another was no boost. So it was a simple randomized controlled trial. And in this trial, if you see the results, the boost had a better local control across all the age groups. It was more so in the younger age groups, but it was, of course, the beneficial in entire cohort of the patients. So therefore, it's a large trial which has shown the benefit of the boost in the early breast cancer patients. And this is the same data at the 20 years follow-up. And if you can see, even at 20 years, the benefit of the boost continues. As you can see, the Kaplan-Meier curve here, the p-values are very highly significant, and the red line is the boost. In fact, sorry, the no boost, where the recurrence is higher, and the blue line shows the boost treatment, and therefore the recurrence is lower in this. Even at 20 years, the boost group had a lower recurrence rate. So therefore, it's a long-term data of randomized control trial, which has shown that the boost has a role. So it is not, some of the trials are practicing and proposing the hyperfractionation without any boost, mostly without the boost. But I think the boost is one concept which should not be forgotten easily. It has been tested in multiple trials. It has shown the benefit in multiple age groups. So when we talk of the, and in the same trial, if we see the various techniques of giving the boost, there were 3 techniques adopted for the boost in this trial. One was the electron, which was practiced in 63% of the patients. Then there was the photon, the next popular technique, in 28% patients. Brachy was least popular. It was only 9% of patients, who received the boost by the brachytherapy. But if you see the number of recurrences of all these 3 techniques, the electron was 4.8% recurrence rate, photon 4%, and brachy was 2.4% least. Therefore, although it was not very popular, it was not practiced as commonly as it should be, but then the recurrence rate was the highest with the electron and the best local control with the brachytherapy. So therefore, if you use brachytherapy for the boost, then the results are bound to be best in terms of the local control. And there are multiple, nowadays, maybe 20 years back, there were not many techniques to localize the boost area, but nowadays we have multiple techniques to localize the boost. Ultrasound, CT scan, MRI, even PET scan has been used in one study to localize the boost. But ultrasound and CT scan are the very good choices for localizing the boost area. Dose is usually within the range of 15 to 20 gray in different fractionation schedules. It depends whether you are using LDR or SDR brachytherapy, or usually it's about, with SDR, many people are using 15 gray 6 fraction, 15 gray 5 fractions. We use 14 gray 4 fraction at our center. And even people are using 10 gray in 2 fractions as per the ABS guidelines, with a gap of around 24 to 40 hours as per the ABS guidelines. But usually I will say that a dose preference should be within the range of 3 to 4 gray per fraction. And the total dose should be around 15 gray equivalent. That's how you can escalate dose to the 65 gray after the 45 gray to 50 gray by the XMB technique. So this is how the dose is prescribed. This is our schedule at AIIMS. We usually follow this. On day 0, we do the surgery plus the parabrachy implant. Day 2, we do the CT simulation and planning. And day 3 to day 4, or day 5, we give the SDR brachytherapy to the lumpectomy area with a 1 cell margin. And we start with 3.5 gray per fraction, 6 hours apart, and we deliver 4 fractions. That means we deliver 14 gray in 4 fractions. And then by the 5th day or 6th day, we get the histopathology report. And if the patient is suitable for APBI, then we continue the same for 10 fractions, which means delivering a 35 gray 10 fraction over 5 days. If the patient is somehow not suitable for for APBI, due to some adverse features, then we stop the brachy there and then, and we deliver only 14 gray, which is used as the boost. And then after 3-4 weeks down the line, we deliver another 45 to 50 gray by the XMM technique. So this is how this brachy technique delivered during the periodic period doesn't go waste. It will be used either as a boost or it will be used as the APBI. And this is the data published from our center of the boost. 100 patients were treated, and local control is 100%. There was no local recurrence. The 5-year survival was around 86% in this group, and this was published in Timori in 2013. So boost has shown the benefit at our center as well. Now, after the boost, the next technique for brachytherapy is the accelerated partial breast irradiation. I'm sure most of the people know and familiar with the APBI. There are 2 components of the APBI. One is that the treatment course is shorter. It's usually 5 days, and that therefore we are accelerating treatment. The second component is smaller volume treated instead of the the whole breast, that is why we call it the partial breast. So that therefore it is called the accelerated partial breast irradiation, and it is conceptualized with the purpose that the compliance rate will be better, toxicity will be less, and it will be the cost-effective treatment, and there will be no compromise in the local control in the survival. And this is the concept for using the for APBI. As we know that around the lumpectomy area, there's usually 1 centimeter area which is a risky zone. Most recurrences occur in that 1 centimeter area around that lumpectomy zone. Therefore, we need not treat the entire breast, and we treat only the centimeter around the lumpectomy. That's how the APBI is conceptualized. There are multiple studies. I will not go in details, but all have shown good results. The recurrence has been around 2 to 4% in various trials. But I'll show just one study which is important, and the results of this study has been published just, I think so, in last month only. This is NSWP RTOG 413 trial. It has 2 arms. One was whole breast arm with a dose of 50 to 50.4 gray. The other arm was APBI arm, in which there were 3 techniques used. One was Mammocyte, and the other was interstitial brachytherapy, and then the third was the EBRT. So 3 techniques were used for APBI in this trial, and the results have been recently published. These are, I will not go in details, but these are just the results of the same trial. In this, if you see, the APBI arm is the blue arm, 4.6% recurrence rate, and in the whole breast irradiation it was 3.9%. So more or less similar. The p-value was not significant. Therefore, the local recurrence is same with whole breast and the APBI. So therefore, if the results are same, then why treat the whole breast and with the longer course of treatment? If you can achieve the same results with the smaller volume and the smaller course of treatment, then that should be the that makes sense. So this is how the large randomized control trial has shown the data in favor of the APBI. There are multiple techniques of APBI. There are almost about 50 odd techniques of the APBI, but they can be broadly categorized into 3 categories for the simple understanding. One is the brachy-based techniques called balloon brachytherapy, the interstitial brachytherapy, hybrid techniques. There are several techniques of brachytherapy for APBI. Then the EBRT-based tech like 3D CRT, IMRT, proton, electron, etc. And then we have the intraoperative techniques like electron with the like the Elliott trial, and the deep X-ray treatment like the target trial. So these are the 3 broad categorized techniques of the APBI. But I would say amongst all these techniques, the brachytherapy is the best technique. And why I say so, I can explain this figure. On the left-hand side, you can see the APBI used treated by the brachytherapy, in which the lumpectomy plus a 1 centimeter margin all around. Therefore, suppose there is a 2 centimeter lumpectomy area, and then we take around 1 centimeter all around, it makes around 4 centimeter diameter area to be treated. On the contrary, the same tumor, if you treat by EBRT or 3D CRT based 3D CRT based APBI, then you will have to take a CTV first, and then you will have to add a margin from CTV to PTV. Usually it becomes like 3 centimeter on either side. It becomes 6 centimeter on both sides. And then if it is a 2 centimeter diameter tumor, then it becomes like 7 to 8 centimeter area or diameter tumor or a breast you have to treat, So there's a drastic difference from 4 centimeter to like 7 to 8 centimeter area you treat. And sometimes it becomes nearly a whole breast treatment rather than the partial breast irradiation. So therefore, that's the basic difference between the brachy-based APBI versus the external beam-based APBI techniques. And then above this, the EBRT has multiple inherent problems like the motion artifacts. As you can see in this picture, if the breast moves with the breathing, then it can go out of the field. And at the same time, the lung or the heart can come to the treatment field. So therefore, it can, due to motion artifacts, you can underdose the target area, and you can overdose the organs at risk. To counter this, you will need 4D simulation, MIP images, gating, tracking, ABC, and so on thing. We can all do all this, but everything comes at a cost, one. And the second thing is that You require a stringent QA for all using all this. If you require the gating or tracking, they need very stringent QA. And more you add, if you do more, like if you do 4D simulation, then gating or tracking, then you are complicating the problem, and then you are adding errors. Everything is error prone technique, So if you add more, you will get more errors. While at the same time, if you can use simply the brachytherapy, then it can be taken care whether the breast moves right, left, here and up and down due to breathing or sneezing, whatever it is, The brachytherapy catheters are going to move with the breathing, and so does move the dosimetry. So therefore, it is highly conformed. It is 4D treatment. You don't require any gating or tracking for this kind of treatment. It's very, very simple. And just to tell you that if you are using IMRT for APBI, every center doesn't have the IMRT. As you can see, this is the data from our ARB. We have almost 357 centers, radiotherapy centers, and we have only 286 linear facilities in our country, as is the 343 brachy facilities in our country. So therefore, if you see the 357 radiotherapy center having 343 brachy facility, that means almost every center on an average has a brachy facility, while the LINAC is not available in every center. So that means that you can, if you wanted to practice APBI with brachytherapy, every center can practice it, but all centers cannot do IMRT based APBI because every center doesn't have the linear facility. So therefore, it is a simple treatment. It can be practiced in any simple center, while the IMRT and the VMAT based APBI cannot be practiced in any center not having the high-end LINACs. So in summary, I would say that amongst the techniques of APBI, every technique has some plus minuses. Balloon brachytherapy is a costly device. It's a disposable device. It's not easily available also, and therefore I don't think anybody is using the balloons in India. It's the same reason, because they are very costly and use and throw. With IoT, it's now the data is going against it, and IoT trials are being criticized for the high local recurrence, both in ILIAT and as well as the target trial. 3D-CRT and IMRT based techniques, as I said, the cost message has not been very good with 3D-CRT techniques. Data is also not very, although now we have rapid trial, but in that the toxicity has been skin toxicity, and the cost message has been a concern. IMRT, as said, it is limited availability, and the cost is also a factor. So these are the various remarks against each and every technique of the APBI. Then amongst the brachy, there are multiple brachy techniques as well. We have balloon, then we have hybrid techniques, and then we have interstitial brachytherapy. So amongst the brachy techniques, if you ask me, I will say interstitial brachytherapy is the best technique. And because the other techniques have some problems. For example, the balloon has multiple problems. If you can see here, the balloon may not conform with the cavity, and there might be some gap, or might be some air, and therefore you can underdose the perilumpectomy area. Sometimes the balloon can burst, and as you can see here, after the the balloon is burst, then the skin comes very close. The area, there might be overdosing to all these areas. Sometimes you can have bleeding or hemorrhage or hematoma around the balloon in the lumpectomy cavity, and therefore you can grossly underdose the area to be treated. Then you can have different shapes of the cavity. It may not conform with the balloon shape, and although surgeons say that they make a spherical cavity, but they hardly, I have never seen a spherical cavity after the surgery has been done. Sometimes due to the balloon inflation, there can be thinning of the skin, and this thin skin might be too close to the balloon, and it might get a very high dose. So balloon has certain inherent problems, although it is a simple technique to use. And there have been reports where the skin dose has been very high. The patients have experienced ulcers and the erythema over that area of the balloon treatment. So therefore, it has some balloon has some problem, mainly because you have one single channel, and you can't save the dosimetry. You don't have very good control on the dosimetry. So what the balloon lobby realized, that the balloon brachytherapy doesn't have very good dosimetry, and therefore they try to modify it as per the interstitial brachytherapy. They try to incorporate the brachytherapy into the balloon. And as you can see, this is a SEVI device in which there are 4 catheters around the balloon and 1 in the center. So with this, they could save the dosimeter in a better way. And ultimately, this is an indirect admission of the balloon lobby, that they have said they realized that the interstitial brachy has a better dosimetry. That's why they try to incorporate the interstitial brachy catheters into the balloon. As you can see here, these are the various CEVIC applicators in different sizes, and you can see the CT image here, central channel, and then the multiple array of the catheters all around the balloon conforming with the cavity. So then you have better control of the dosimetry because there's multiple sources. This is the ultimate form of the brachytherapy, which I like because not because that I've been practicing, but because the dosimetry control is very, very good. And in this, multiple multiple catheters are inserted into the lumpectomy area. And it is so comfortable that the patients can wear a bra over this. They can go home and they can come back for the treatment morning, evening, and they can go home. You know, this is against the people that some people say that brachy is very invasive, it is very traumatic, and in my opinion, very simple. As you can see here, patients can wear the bra, they can go home, and they can come back for treatment. So it's not that invasive as the people perceive it, or people believe about it, traumatic in nature. The multiple publications, multiple series published with the interstitial brachytherapy based APBI. And as you can see here, the 5-year local recurrence has been to the tune of just 2.9%, 4%, 3.9%, 2.3%, is less than like 4%, you know, which is very, very well acceptable. Cost basis also has been like 90% plus in many of the series, you know, and they are with all PDR, HDR, LDR, all these bracket techniques, you know. So the results with the interstitial brachytherapy are really good for APBI. I will not go into details of the much literature, but this is one study I would like to quote. This is J. Castro trial published in Lancet 2016. It was a randomized control trial with a good number of patients, 1184 patients randomized in 2 arms, whole breast versus the APBI. But remember, in this, the APBI technique was only and only the interstitial brachytherapy. So it is a purely interstitial brachytherapy based APBI versus the whole breast arm. Okay, and then this is our protocol. Although there are many selection criteria as per the different guidelines. We have ASTRO guidelines, we have J-Castro guidelines, we have ABS guidelines, and we have ASBS guidelines. There are multiple guidelines for selection of patients for APBI, but this is our simple APBI selection criteria at our aims, what we follow. Tumor size less than 3 centimeters, age more than 40 years, hormone receptor, it's all right, and it can be positive or negative, we don't mind. Any histological grade. Focal LVCI we allow, node negative, but sometimes I can accept 1 or 2 nodes if the patient has other favorable factors. Excellent criteria, there should be, if their patient doesn't have any cavity, visible cavity or the clip, because this is, in my opinion, the first and foremost criteria. If you cannot see the cavity or the clip, then you should not practice the APBI, because then you can be highly wrong. If the patient has positive margins, or the extensive DCIS or LVSI, or the patient has already received neoadjuvant chemotherapy, or patient has N2N3 disease or multisystem disease. These are the exclusion criteria for APBI. General principles, we should do the proper counseling of the patient. It should be done under local anesthesia. It can be done general anesthesia. In some patients who are cooperative, I have done under local anesthesia also. Demarcate the area of the implant with the help of this pre-simulation CT scan. Usually 1 to 2 centimeters is marked around the lumpectomy area. Distance between the 2 adjacent needles should be around 1 to 1.5 centimeter, and distance between the 2 planes should be around, again, 1 to 1.5 centimeter. And if required, we should ask for the surgical help as well. And then this is, if somebody is starting the APBI, brachy-based APBI, then there are multiple guidelines. One should go through that so that the procedure becomes easy. This is ABS guidelines published in 2017. And then we have J-Castro guidelines published in 2018. These are these are for only interstitial-based brachy APBI. And then this is J-Castro guidelines 2018. This is our protocol dose schedules as against the ABS and J-Castro dose schedules. ABS recommends 34 Gray 10 fraction over 5 days in a BD fashion. J-Castro also recommends 32 Gray 8 fractions 4 days, again in a BD schedule. Our dose is slightly different from ABS, although you can say it is slightly similar to ABS. It is, we practice 35 grade 10 fraction over 5 days because it suits us. We are using the same dose per fraction for the boost, so we just continue that. So it suits from both point of view, whether we are using the boost or we are using the APBI. So ours is 35 grade 10 fraction over 5 days times. There are various dose constraints for evaluating the plan. APBI, ABS has its own guidelines. The JCASTRO also has guidelines. We have slightly modified those guidelines, those constraints. I will just tell you the dose. This is the JCASTRO guidelines. PD is prescribed dose. The volume of the prescribed dose should be less than 300 cc. This is a new concept which has been devised by the JCASTRO. And this is the dose non-homogeneity ratio is like 0.35%, or the dose homogeneity index should be around 0.65. You can just minus 1 minus 0.35, you know. PTV, volume reaching 100% dose should be more than 90%. V150 should be less than 65 cc. V200 should be less than 15 cc. And conformity index should be more than 0.65. Then these are again for absolute non-target breast. These are the OR constraints. I don't follow all of them. I usually make sure that the skin does not get more than 100% dose. The ribs and the chest wall also do not get like more than 100%. And then heart and lung, I usually don't measure the dose because I know the dose is usually very, very minimal. So I don't even control them because it's a wastage of time. These are the ABS guidelines. I usually mostly follow our protocol is mostly as per the ABS. As I said, the skin should not be getting more than 100%. It should be less than 100%, as you can see here. Chest wall again, it should be less than 125 in the prescribed dose, but I usually accept 100% of the prescribed dose. Dose homogeneity index should be more than 0.75. I usually accept it even below that, like even if it is 0.66, that's fine, because if the volume is not very large, then I can accept up to even up to 0.65. So, but the dose homogeneity index should be around 7.75. Volume reaching 150% dose should be less than 45. I usually accept till 60 cc because I've seen in my practice it doesn't matter. Even up to sometimes 70 cc is fine. Volume reaching 200% dose should be less than 14 cc. This is as per ABS, but I usually accept till 20 cc. I've seen that V150 should be less than 70 cc and V200 should be less than 20 cc. That works fine with me, although these are the guidelines by the ABS. And then there are multiple techniques of using the intensive brachytherapy. Some people are using the mammography-based techniques. Some people are using ultrasound gauge. Some people use template for guiding the implant. I usually have two techniques to propose, and I usually follow them because I practice them, so I'm very comfortable with them. And I think so if you practice them, they are fine to use. One is the perioperative brachytherapy, where we implant the catheters during the surgery and then treat like 3 to 5 days after the surgery. With a gap in between. Another is the post-operative technique, where you have done this surgery and you have, after 3 to 4 weeks, when you have the entire pathology details of the tumor with you, and you can precisely decide whether the patient is for the APBI or not, and you can accordingly select the patient for the treatment. You know, so both has plus and minuses, but I usually practice both depending on the factors. So I'm going to describe these two techniques so that you can duplicate these two techniques at your center. The first is, as I said, the perioperative technique, where we implant on day 0, and then on day 2 or day 3 we do the CT simulation, and on somehow day 3, day 4 I start the treatment with 3.5 gray per fraction. And if by 5th day or 6th day we get the histopathology report, and by that time we come to know whether the patient is for APBI or not. If for APBI, just we continue for another 10 for total of 10 fractions. That means 35 and 10 fractions. If not, then we use same as for the boost. And this is the first technique, as I told you, the perioperative brachy. That means implant during the surgery. This is the best technique in my opinion, because you see the cavity with your own naked eyes. You can palpate it all around. The surgeon is there to guide you that where the exactly tumor or the lump was located. So this is the best technique, if you ask me, because once you close the cavity, after that there will be seroma. The clips might move here and there, and you may not be certain that where was the lump area. But in this, you can see with the naked eyes, you can palpate, you can take the help of the surgeon, and you can see the lump being taken out in front of your eyes. So you can precisely implant the area for the PBI. And the first plane has to rest on the tumor bed, which means there should be no gap between the underlying tumor bed of the muscle. This will just abut with the tumor bed so that there is no gap in between. The next plane has to be about 1.2 to 1.5 centimeter from the deeper plane. And I have a simple technique to follow this. You should try and put your finger in between the two planes. If it is just simply going this, that means the distance is adequate. If it's tight or it is too much, then you should modify the plane. But usually, if you are able to put one finger, that means your distance between the two planes is adequate. And then we close the cavity, and this is how the buttons are put. There should be no gap between the skin and the button, otherwise they're going to move here and there. And they can be slightly tight because usually there's some edema during the surgery, and in the post-operative period, the edema settles down and they might become a little loose, you know. So you can put a little pressure, but it shouldn't be too much, otherwise you will have skin necrosis around the buttons. And this is the CT scan of the same patient, which is done on 3rd or 4th day, depending on your schedule or your protocol. And you can see the nice arrangement of the catheters in around the lumpectomy cavity. The idea should be to trap the cavity or the seroma cavity all around so that you can cover it very, very well. And then this is how we delineate the CTV, which means this is a guideline from the JCASTRO of late, or even ABS is recommending this, that if the pathologist has told you the margins in a particular direction, then you can just add the margin accordingly in order to have a 2 centimeter margin from the gross tumor. For example, if the surgeon has removed 15 millimeter on one side, then you can just add 5 millimeter just to make it centimeter from the lump, you know. If the surgeon has removed a less margin for less than 1 centimeter, like 5 millimeter on this side, then you can add more margin on this side in order to take 2 centimeter from the gross tumor, you know. Idea is that, you know. So you can titrate the margins as per the pathologist, but many times the pathologist won't tell you in each direction that how much this surgeon has removed and how much the margin is away from your gross lump. But I usually add 1 centimeter or 1 to 1.5 all around the clips which are visible in the CT scan. And this is how the dosimetry is resulting from the planning. As you can see, nice coverage of the cavity. One thing which I keep in mind, that the skin dose should not be like 100%. In this case, you can appreciate very well. And then the adjoining catheters should not join. The 150% isodose should not join with each other. It can join at 1 or 2 places, like here it is joined, but we don't mind because this is going into only in the seroma cavity, which is just a fluid or a air, you know. So there is no tissue here. So you can accept sometime the even 150% isodose joining with the 2 adjacent catheters if it is in the air, but usually not more than 2 or 3 catheters should join the 150% isodose curve. The other technique, this was the perioperative brachy technique. This is the post-operative brachy technique, in which we do this surgery, wait for like 3 to 4 weeks down the line. We allow the tissues to heal. And in the meantime, we get the detailed biopsy report, histopathology report. And based on that, we can very precisely, accurately decide whether the patient is going for the boost or the patient is going for the APBI. And in which this technique, what we do, that we admit the patient a day before the procedure. And on the day before the procedure, we do a CT simulation. And in this, you can see the clips very well. And after seeing the clips, you take around a 1 centimeter margin all around, and you can mark the skin just about a centimeter, 1.5 centimeter from the clip, you know, on either side in the Excel image. Similarly, 1 centimeter above the cranial most clip and 1 centimeter below the caudal most clip, you know. So this is how you can mark the skin, the implant area. As you can see, all 4 clips are visible. This is the deep clip, and this is the middle one, the lateral one, the superficial one, you know. Similarly, in multiple slices, you will see these clips. And you can see this is the area which we want to actually, this is our CTV, and then with a margin. And then this is how we mark, we place a marker, lead marker on the skin. which corresponds to the these clips. You know, this is the lead marker, and this is as per the clips visible here. So therefore, this is how you can see the on the CT configured image. You can see the this wire, and then you can mark it with the pen ink, and then you can take the patient to the operation theater. Once you know that this the area to be implanted is this is your implant territory, you should try and remain confined within this territory, so that if you remain within this confines, then you are going to implant the tumor or the area well, and you are not going to go outside well. But still, we check with the post implants CT scanning. Like in this patient, this was the area of the lump, and then this was the margin, and accordingly we have implanted the catheters. You know. This is how it looked like post-operative on a CT scan. This is a stacked image. You can see that how the catheters are visible. And then another patient where the tumor was on the medial quadrant. Most people will think that if the tumor is too close to the skin, then people sometimes do not do the brachy-based APBI. For this is not a contraindication to me. In fact, I prefer using brachy for even the tumors like this, because if you don't do brachy, then you are going to choose some other techniques like electron or the X beam techniques, where you will still have a risk of giving a high dose to the skin and to the underlying lung or the heart. I'll show you in the next image. Like this patient was implanted like this. This was the tumor bearing zone, and then a margin of 1 to 1.5 all around the lumpectomy area. And this is how we implanted the catheter, 2-plane implant in this patient. And you see, this is how just to show that there should be no gap between the skin and the buttons. Okay. And this is the CT image. As you can see here, the lung is almost getting a very small dose, although it is getting some dose because it is very close to the chest wall. And that's deliberate because we didn't want to underdose the tumor. But if you see other techniques, if you see EBRT based techniques, the lung is very close, and due to breathing, there's a great risk of delivering the dose to the underlying heart and the lung. So I think even these tumors where the thickness is not very much, the brachy is still a very good technique, because then you can titrate, you can shape the dosimetry with the different dwell positions and dwell points and the dwell times. So just to summarize the role of brachy in the breast cancer is that brachy plays an important role in the carcinoma of breast. For early breast cancer treatment, it can be used as a boost as well as the APBI, and there's sufficient literature on interstitial brachy-based APBI. It gives excellent local control and cosmesis, whether it's boost or APBI, but it provides a high local control and very good cosmesis. Unfortunately, it is not very much utilized in our country, and it is underutilized. Keeping in mind the strength of the brachytherapy, it is underutilized in a country like India for several reasons. And I think so we must extend the benefit of the brachytherapy to the Indian patients as well. Thank you very much.